changing the podcast up a bit, but also BNR announcement happened. And it's a doozy. First, though, the intro. My name is Dom Douglas, and I've been playing Magic the Gathering for what seems like forever. But in fact, it's only been on and off for about 30 years. With that comes an expectation that I'm the best player ever. You couldn't be any more wrong in that statement. What I do like, however, is having a lot of fun. Whether it be playing Limited, Draft, Commander, Standard when I get the chance, Arena, Magic the Gathering Online, it doesn't matter as long as a good time is had. And with that, I have some opinions, not just of Magic the Gathering, but also video games, comics, maybe even a TV show or two. This is the Goblin Grenade Podcast. Yes, folks, my name is Dom Douglas for Max Heroes and Villains, and I know I've been consistently inconsistent with the release dates. I think, in the last 3 weeks or so, but that's through no fault of my own. I would like to say I'm probably going to, against my better judgment, start dropping these on Tuesdays now, because I don't know, Wednesdays just feels like it's the middle of the week. I know it's hump day, but it just always feels like if I want to release like the draft videos this week, I can do that on Thursday or Friday, and it'll be enough of a gap on also the other content coming up for Max Heroes and Villains. That being said, BNR today, it is June 30th, and it was big. It was substantial ban and restricted. So we're going to go into Standard because, all right, well, let's start with Standard. No, let's do everything else. All right, when it comes to Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Vintage, Pauper, nothing. Alchemy, if you play that phony format on Arena, Corey Steel Cutter suspended. Spoilers. Pioneer, Best of One. Tybalt's Trickery is banned. In Historic, in Arena, Counterspell is unbanned. Timeless and Brawl, no changes. In Standard, Corey Steel Cutter, Abuelo's Awakening, Monstrous Rage, Heartfire Hero, Up the Beanstalk, Hopeless Nightmare, and This Town Ain't Big Enough are banned. Wow. They hit 4 decks in Standard. They hit Is It Prowess, they hit Mono Red Aggro, they hit I think some of the bounce mechanics as well. They also hit Omniscience, just in case. But they didn't hit some of the other things. Now, this is the part of the video where I'm going to cut it, okay, and I'm going to record, we're going to flash back, okay, to a couple of weeks ago when we did that thought experiment, and if I could ban one card in each color, and let's see how correct I was. To not have things rotate out, but the first card we're going to be talking about is Sunfall. This is the white card that I would ban. Obviously, the second card that we would ban, Monstrous Rage. I am sorry. Ra's Eldraine card, Up the Beanstalk would be the green card that I would ban. For 1 and a green, remember, this is all experimental. This is just a thought experiment here, folks. This isn't me actually saying this is the cards I would ban, because Beanstalk wouldn't get banned. Beanstalk's not that bad of a thing. This is the card that has angered me for a year now. This is not me saying thought experiment. This is me saying this card should get out of here. This card should be banned. Stock Up would be the blue card that I banned. This is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. Those are pretty good numbers there for a thought experiment. So the article is written by Carmen, Jadine, Aria, Gavin, and Dave, because they all have their own specialties and whatnot. In their explanation for Standard, remember, this BNR is the once a year All the other pseudo BNRs that have happened have been in that emergency window when a set comes out. This is the yearly ban, and they make a good point in saying this one taught us some valuable lessons now that we have the 3-year standard rotation happening. This is probably one of the biggest ban lists in standard has seen. So yeah, it's been exhaustive, quite honestly. With the release of Tarkir Dragonstorm in April, and this is from the article, had a dramatic effect on the standard metagame, propelling its prowess to the top of the metagame on the wings of Quarry Steelcutter. It was the deck to beat at the recent round of standard regional championships and represented over 40% of the standard metagame at Pro Tour Magic Final Fantasy. Let's flip the camera real quick, folks. So this is the second place deck in Pro Tour Final Fantasy. This is the Is It Prowess deck. Coming in with the only artifact in Quarry Steelcutter. And also playing Monstrous Rage. So as well in the sideboard. So yeah, it's clear that Is It Prowess deck is having a negative effect on standard metagame. Its play rate numbers are substantially higher. It is crystal clear because one example is Mono Red, which had to reinvent itself for an Is It Prowess world by adopting large number of main deck copies Magebane Lizard. With 1 and a red, it's a creature for a 1/4. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, Magebane Lizard deals damage to that player equal to the number of non-creature spells they've cast this turn, which is an excellent card against Prowess strategies that was seeing very little play before. Quarry Steelcutter is the obvious target for the Is It Prowess deck for banning. It is quite simply too strong in a format. And this also will prevent, like, if they cut something else from Is It Prowess, that the Mono Red just doesn't adopt Quarry Steelcutter immediately. Also had a large impact on Modern, a format considerably more powerful than Standard. Quarry Steel leaves the burden of answering artifact cards and the ease of which Quarry Steelcutter leaves meaningful board presence behind even when quickly destroyed. The combination of sheer strength and resilience has let Quarry Steelcutter run rampant in Standard, and it did. At this point, the tools to challenge Cutter's dominance don't exist in the environment, which is understandable, because even with removal, like the creature removal, or even getting rid of tokens, Quarry Steelcutter that next turn can at least get another 1/1 white creature token out on the field. You can rebuild your board very easy because of Quarry Steelcutter. So now they also hit Azorius Omniscience. Hitting Omniscience is actually a good part because Abuelo's Awakening nerfs this deck big time, because Abuelo's Awakening is a way to cheaply get Omniscience on the field, because it's X3 and a white for return target artifact or non-aura enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield with X additional +1/+1 counters on it. It's a 1/1 spirit creature type with flying in addition to its other types. So you would literally on turn 4 cast this to get Omniscience back for 6 less mana than you're supposed to cast it. It's a 1/1 that easily gets beaten or killed, but before then you can just cast everything you want. You can cast a Scroll Shift to bounce it back. You can get all the River Meringue regions to draw so many cards. You can draw all your cards. You can get all the spells that you've wanted out. It temporary lockdown into bounce spells, like yeah. Second most popular deck at Pro Tour was Azorius Omniscience. As I said before, last on the Pro Tour, it didn't make top 8, but it had a 20% share of the metagame. It existed for quite some time, but climbed in popularity after gaining new cards in Rolling Dragonstorm and Meringue River region. With the release of Tarkir Dragonstorm, Abuelo's Awakening always had the potential to create a deck like this, as 4 mana is cheaper than we normally allow non-creature reanimation effects to be. But we had hoped that turning but we had hoped that turning what it brings back into a creature would allow more ample counterplay. That has not proven the case for Omniscience. Combo decks like Azorius Omniscience are always something we want to exist in Standard, but when too strong, they warp the format around them and reduce the number of viable decks. This version of Omniscience has proven too powerful and consistent. For these reasons, Abuelo's Awakening is banned, which is a beautiful thing. I was afraid they weren't going to hit it. I mean, they should have hit Omniscience so they don't have to worry about future design banning the card that's going to help Omniscience get out of the graveyard faster, considering Omniscience is legal for the next 5 years. But I guess they want the Omniscience style decks out around. Monstrous Rage has been powering red aggressive decks in Standard since its release in Wilds of Eldraine. It is one of the strongest and most efficient combat tricks ever printed. There's Monstrous Rage right there. Target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Create a monster roll token attached to it. That monster roll gives it +1/+1 and has trample for 1 red mana. We've enjoyed having a combat trick be a strong Standard card, but it's clear that Rage has overstayed its welcome. It has enabled combo-style aggro decks more than we would like, and has played a large role in lowering the fundamental turn in Standard and putting players under too much pressure. For these reasons, Rage is banned. You can see the winning deck for Pro Tour Final Fantasy, as you can see, had the Magebane Lizards in main deck to counteract Izzet Prowess, and also 4 copies of Monstrous Rage, 4 copies of Heartfire Hero with Manifold Mouse. There's that whole combo right there. Hired Claw. Twin Maw Stormbrood is probably the best mono red edition ever, just because you only cast the Omen. You can never cast it as a creature, but that Omen is so powerful that the mono red decks are playing it. And another thing, Heartfire Hero has been another key piece of red aggressive decks' strength throughout the last year. The curve of Hero into Manifold Mouse, which Manifold Mouse, 1 in a red, or you can pay 2 extra of any color to make a copy of it, which is a 1/1. Beginning of combat on your turn, target mouse you control gains your choice of Double Strike or Trample until end of turn. Heartfire Hero is a 1 drop for 1/1 Mouse Soldier. Whenever it becomes a target of a spell or ability you control for the first time each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So with that and the combination of Manifold Mouse, you immediately make it a +2/+2 Double Strike Trampler. Next turn +3/+3. But also when it dies, it deals damage equal to power to each opponent. So between all of that, its strength has shifted the format towards decks that can interact starting on turn 1 or 2, and decks that can leverage temporary lockdown as powerful counterplay. We want red aggressive strategies to be a viable option in Standard, but Heartfire Hero has proven to be too explosive. So Heartfire Hero is also banned. They also discussed only banning Hero or Rage, but ultimately decided banning it both was the correct course of action. The 2 cards are both independently strong, and leaving either alone would make it likely that aggressive decks in the format would be combo-style aggro decks with consistent explosive starts and a lot of burst damage potential. By banning both, we shift the aggressive strategies of the format away from combo-style aggro, decrease the interaction burden on non-aggressive decks in the format, and thus increase the number of viable cards in decks. Okay. They also had to make sure that they weren't going to completely nuke mono red aggro, which it is at this point, but also needed to hit Izzet Prowess as well. And then Domain Overlords. Remember, Domain Overlords, before Tarkir, was one of the most played decks. And this is why I've always maintained that the Duskmourn mechanically has some of the best cards, because the Overlords are amazing. And this particular style deck plays 8 total. The 4 Hauntwood, 4 Mistmoors, has a Zur Enchanter because the Overlords are also enchantments. But the biggest card here was Up the Beanstalk. Up the Beanstalk is 1 in a green enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, or whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater, draw a card. There's been no stranger to the ban list, Up the Beanstalk. It's actually been banned in Modern for 2 years now at this point. It has been clearly cemented as the best-in-class source of card advantage for slower decks. It shares Corey Steelcutter's quality of being challenging to interact with and profitably, as its controller will almost always be up full card on the exchange. This means the decks powered by Beanstalk are hard for many strategies to adapt to. The deck building puzzle of Up the Beanstalk has also been solved so many times at this point that they expect it to be more monotonous than engaging as more cost-restricted cards get released in the near future. We felt that even some of these, cost reduction cards may get released in future sets. So already there's going to be some cost reducing cards in the next year coming out. That's just them future proofing. We also felt that some of the pains while developing cards and mechanics have yet to be released. For these reasons, Up the Beanstalk is banned. Future proofing. All right, there's going to be mana cost reduction. What does that mean for Up the Beanstalk? Up the Beanstalk doesn't care about how much you paid for the card, for the spell. Just what that top right corner cost is. So if I manage to be able to cheat out a 5 mana value creature for 3 mana, I still get to draw the card for Up the Beanstalk. And for green, that is really bad. So imagine, if you will, getting these cards way cheaper, like the Overlords and the Bounding Springs and, Leyline Binding, which won't exist in a couple months, but still, like, you can get these cards super cheap and then get the draw card for it. And one that I thought was going to get hit, but in the thought experiment, I'm pretty sure the self-bounce decks have shifted a lot as the format has progressed, which is a small, powerful core of constant between iterations. Hopeless Nightmare, which for 1 black mana enters the battlefield, each opponent discards a card and loses 2 life. When Hopeless Nightmare is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, scry 2. 2 and a black, sacrifice Hopeless Nightmare. The pattern of constant discard it forces on the opponent is among the least fun elements of the deck and shrinks the game in a way that makes it hard to come back once the self-bounce deck gets going. So basically the hand destruction decks style of self-bounce are gone. In addition, Hopeless Nightmare provides the self-bounce deck with both interaction and damage because, you do also lose 2 life no matter what, even if they don't discard a card, allowing the deck to position itself as a disruptive, aggressive deck. In the interest of removing the least fun elements of the self-bounce decks, Hopeless Nightmare is now banned. One that I was surprised wasn't stock up, but instead this town ain't big enough. For 4 and a blue for an instant, it costs 3 less to cast if it targets a permanent you control. Return up to 2 target non-land permanents to their owner's hand. This town ain't big enough has seen play in many different standard decks. It almost always sees play alongside Storm Chaser's Talent, another card that didn't get hit, but I don't think it needed to get hit. A 2-card package that has proven itself in a variety of shells. Most recently, this package played a role in Izzet Prowess deck, but before that was a key player in versions of the self-bounce synergies that incorporated blue. So they're trying to also protect self-bounce from actually getting This Town Ain't Big Enough back in those decks to compete with the now shifted metagame from today. When commonplace, This Town Ain't Big Enough makes the format less fun, though its unique ability to interact with any permanent-based strategy while still advancing its wielder's game plan. While not a huge share of its overall power, the loop of Storm Chaser's Talent is particularly frustrating and adds a threat of endgame lockout to many matchups, making games less fun. For this reason, This Town Ain't Big Enough is banned. It's been a little bit over 2 years since they've announced a 3-year standard. With every set release, we've learned how to adapt our design to this new model for standard. This set of bans is emblematic of 2 key learnings that they will be carrying forward into the future. First, with the larger card pool of 3-year standard, which is boggling at this point. They need to be more precise with their 1 mana cards and cards that synergize with 1 mana cards. 3 of the cards banned today only cost 1 mana, and Corey Steelcutter asked to be played alongside the cheapest cards available. The potential for 1 mana cards to define the format grows as the card pool increases. So they're going to need to scrutinize not just their bans, but also an R&D developing the new sets to make sure that the 1-drops aren't going to cause a power shift like Corey Steel Cutter did. Second, they need to scrutinize and be careful with the rate of cards that are challenging to interact with favorably. With the increased power level of decks in the larger format and a 3-year cycle, decks are very capable of turning a small advantage into a snowball. Strong cards that leave resources behind when dealt with, like Corey Steel Cutter and Up the Beanstalk, reliably create the first small advantage. Identifying these cards and evaluating their strength and context of the interactional requirements is a task that play design is incorporating into the process going forward. So not only was this a bit of a... This is what the BNR, ban and restricted, are looking at, but also design philosophies. They realized 7 cards in standard to ban is an awful lot. And if they didn't do it now, it would literally be Azorius Control, Is It Prowess, Mono Red Aggro for the next year. Whereas now, Pixie Bounce comes back in. Overlords might be able to come back in. I don't know if it'll be Domain, because a lot of the Domain cards are going to be rotating out in a couple months. But Insidious Roots decks as well. There was 2 of them in Pro Tour Final Fantasy. I want to see what those Insidious Roots decks do. And the last bit, announcement for today, considering the next standard rotation won't be until early 2027. We'll be having 2 of our early rotation standard banning windows before the next standard rotation. You can expect one of these windows in about 18 months, right before the rotation as usual, and the other one will be roughly 9 months around the midway point. But we haven't decided on an exact date yet, and it could move around by a month or 2. So we're not going to hear from the yearly BNRs anymore. Pioneer had no changes because they are very happy. Pioneer, Corey Steel Cutter is actually fitting in perfect because it's gone into Is It Phoenix decks along with a couple others. And then Terra Magical Adept is in Ignamic Incarnation lists as well. So that's good. Modern, there will be no changes during this announcement because they're in the middle of the Modern RCQ season. Last 6 months of Modern has seen a massive shakeup since Underworld Breach was banned a few months ago. And it wasn't clear how things were going to shake out other than players believing Boros Energy was going to be the top dog, to which it was. That being said, because of Corey Steel Cutter and Kedramos from Aether Drift, they've actually kind of like pushed aside a little bit the Boros Energy deck, or at least keeping the Boros Energy deck in check. To the point that Orzhov Blink decks are now splashing in blue for Psychic Frog. That's amazing. We were going to hit Boros Energy, but then we realized Corey Steel Cutter, it's messing Standard up, but it is keeping Pioneer in check. Legacy, ever since banning Sowing Myco Spawn, Eldrazi decks have kind of vanished. And the Mystic Forge artifact combo kind of took its place for the colorless decks. But the last online Legacy Showcase top 8 was very diverse. I looked at that list. Different deck in the top 8. Every single deck was different. They go into Oops All Spells because there's an interaction with Oops All Spells in Legacy that shouldn't happen, but because the way the game rules are, you can happen. On one hand, it's like a fringe outlying. You really need to know the game rules interactions to play this deck correctly. Basically, what you want to do is empty your entire library and then flashback cost Dread Return, which return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then you get Thassa's Oracle back to win the game immediately. There is no land in the deck, but between Simian Spirit Guides, the creature lands, the modal face land cards, Nakumimas, Poxwalkers, Simian Spirit Guides, you can get enough mana along with the Lotus Petal to basically mill out your entire deck and then Oracle for the win. Some people don't like this deck, but a lot of people think it's actually a really cool interaction. And if you know the game's engine of why the game mechanics work, you should kind of be rewarded for it because not many people are playing it. But Vintage, they're not touching Luris at the moment. They're still keeping an eye out on it, but they want to see what happens in the next couple of sets just in case. Pauper, Deadly Dispute, good ban. Nothing got banned. No changes. Deadly Dispute, since banning, overall great. High Tide on the unbanning, however, has led to like not an over meta shift with High Tide decks taking over. Instead, it's a play pattern and how long that combo takes to play. They're not touching it now because they said if they re-ban High Tide is banned in Pauper forever, can never come back. So they want to see what happens after Paupergeddon on July 4th, and then they're going to advance around in August. From what Gavin wrote, they're going to not wait till November, but they're going to do it like a month or two after Paupergeddon to see if High Tide is rebanned. The fake format Alchemy, Corey Steelcutter suspended until they redesign it, I guess, for Alchemy. Tibble's Trickery, understandable. It's an instant win combo, and it's not fun. Historic. Counterspell is now unbanned in Historic. So Historic and Timeless are starting to like get there because you can only play Counterspell and Timeless up until this point. Now you can at least play it in Historic. And that also means I think Counterspell, Timeless, nothing changing. Charbelcher combo has been handled with Hand Disruption and Counterspells in main decks of Mardu Energy, Shift and Tell, and Psychic Frog tempo decks all make up some of the most powerful magic you can play anywhere along with Charbelcher. Brawl, nothing. So yeah, the biggest takeaway for me for the standard bannings has been Monstrous Rage, Beanstalk, Hopeless Nightmare. All came from Wilds of Eldraine. So Wilds of Eldraine is a little bit of an overpowered set. Hey, it sounds familiar for Eldraine. Because they had 3 cards banned here. And I agree with all 3 of the cards. I mean, all 3 of the cards from Wilds of Eldraine being banned. The 7 cards being banned in Standard, however, being Corey Steelcutter, Abuelo's Awakening, Monstrous Rage, Heartfire Hero, Up the Beanstalk, Hopeless Nightmare, and This Town Ain't Big Enough, I feel hits every ban that needed to. Every deck that needed to either kind of get nuked, like Mono Red Aggro needed to get nuked in this way because of Rage and Hero. And also, like, if you say you don't ban Corey Steelcutter in response to that, well, Is It Prowess runs wild? And also Mono Red starts using Corey Steelcutter because Hero and Rage are now taken out. They will find other cards to use to make Corey Steelcutter in Mono Red shells even worse than before. Balance is taken care of. Omniscience has a little bit of a ding to it, a little bit of a hit taken to it. Even like, and that Hopeless Nightmare Up the Beanstalk does hit Overlords as well. So overall, I like the standard bans. I really do. Is it an overcorrection? Probably to most people. Is it what was needed? Yes. This is the biggest takeaway is they're learning now with the 3-year standard cycle that they have to R&D differently. And I knew this was going to happen. I called it years ago when they shifted to a 3-year. I'm like, it's going to be a while before it actually gets okay, because by then, at that point, I think 6 or 7 sets had already been in some percentage of design from either just about to be released or at least 30 to 40% in R&D. And it's going to be a bit. And we're at that time where Wilds of Eldraine was designed, but after it was designed before they did it completely. So I think this could be the last big hit, because now we're getting into the last like 2 or 3 sets and beyond now, where the 3-year life cycle has been known from the start. So R&D definitely needs to make sure that they don't have a resilience on 1-drops and make sure that all other interactions are being thought of. There might be a second part to this. Who knows? I'm doing this at 12:30 in the afternoon because this BNR announcement just dropped. So it's going to sound a little different because I'm using Audacity, but also this was a draft that happened that I stopped recording in the middle of the draft because I thought it was going to be bad. I thought the deck was going to be bad after the first few picks, and lo and behold, this was a beast of a draft deck. As we see Black Mage's Rod, the Crystal Fragments, the Dwarven Castle Guard, City of Omens, Resentful Revelation, Undercity Dire Rat, which barely saw any play in this. Spoilers. I recorded the last few matches, I might add. 2 copies of Vincent's Limit Break, which I misplayed all the time. A Monk's Fist, because that's how bad I thought this draft was. I was desperate for creatures. Paladin Arms, not that bad. SideQuest Catch a Fish helped so much because we were ramping into something, as you'll see. Chocomog, Venat Heart of Hadolin was what we were ramping into, and I even misplayed the card once or twice when I didn't record, and you may catch me doing that one other time. I mean, who's playing Sambling Seath in a deck that doesn't do graveyard shenanigans? I have Shinra Reinforcement just for the life gain. Can you tell me how this deck went 5-3? Spoilers, by the way. Rufus Shinra saw play one time. Blitzball, that's how crazy this deck was. In my brain, this deck should not have worked, should not have gone. Okay, 5-3. White Oracite as a removal piece, one of the only 2 or 3 that we have. Namzoom Trader for a life and a token. Final Days, low-key all-star in this. Cloudbound Moogle because I screwed this draft up. I felt so bad. Golbez, Clad in Darkness, also known as Sir Conrad, and Marlborough. But Sir Conrad was an all-star along with Venat. We were playing 8 plains, 8 swamps. Tell me how this deck made any sense going 5-3. So the game has begun. I forgot what game we were in, but we were deep in this draft, as I said. Kind of didn't record because I thought this was going to be a bad draft, and then after I won 3 games in a row, I went 3-1 or something, I was like, let me start recording this. So we play the Dwarven Castle Guard on turn 2. Yes, this is in post, I might add. Heck dies. So what are we going to get rid of? I'm like, easy, that's an island. We get rid of that. Now I'm debating, do I play Venat now or do I just bring out a Blitzball? Maybe I get them to block. All right, cool. Now I get a 1-1. I could save it with the Limit Break, but I'd like to save Limit Break for something different. And I'm debating, do I do it? What do I do? But instead I just take the trade, get the 1-1, and then we just play Blitzball, which I misplay horribly, and I didn't even know what Blitzball's second line of text meant. I just thought if I dealt damage to a creature, a player. They hit us with the Black Mage Rod. And then I now have enough mana to get the Moogle, the Moogle, I mean. Why do I keep saying Moogle? And we'll make our token a 2-2, and they let it go through. So now I'm thinking they're just going to flood the board with wizards, and they are on that Rakdos Wizards track. And I'm okay with Cloudbound Moogle getting destroyed this way. As now we have White Auracite, but we have a Venat Heart of Hadelin now. So if we ever get to the 7 lands, we can flip it, but also we can save it with Vincent's Limit Break. And if there's something that we don't like, we have White Auracite. That's how bad I thought this deck was. White Auracite in the main. And now we're going to Black Mage's Rod in the attempt that hopefully they let this combat go through, because now we still have enough for a Limit Break. So if they block with the Ahriman, I will Limit Break it. But I think our opponent sees through our little ruse here, so they're going to just let themselves eat the 5. Now they have cornered by Black Mages, and I have a choice to make. Do I kill the token, or do I kill the token with the Black Mage's Rod? I opt to kill the token without the Black Mage's Rod. So now we're in a bit of a pickle here, as they're starting to get their board developed with the Black Mage's Rods. The Black Mage and the 0/1 mages every time they cast a non-creature. But now I think it's time for me to White Auracite this Ahriman in a very bad play, I might add, because I don't want to use my precious removal on a White Auracite, and we're just going to swing in, and hopefully they block and we at least get rid of one of these wizard tokens. They decide to take 5 to the dome again. Now, I could have possibly used Vincent's Limit Break to get more damage in, but I want to save it to bounce back the Venat in case they get some removal. And our opponent goes deep in the thought here. Once again, we get hit with the Cornered by Black Mages, which is premium removal, which is why I was saying this deck wasn't going anywhere. I had no removal, so we have to. I can do a goofy thing here where I could have done a goofy thing where I target the Venat, Limit Break it, but I didn't know if they had removal for Venat on top of Cornered by Black Mages, and I didn't want to take that chance. And looking back on this footage, I go, this is how I shouldn't have won these games, but yet we got here. So I'm going to equip the Mage's Rod to Venat. I'm going to drop a Swamp, and then I think I attack with Venat, hoping that I could have Vincent's Limit Breaked here at this point to make it a 7 power and win. And I realized this just now that I should have done this, but instead I finally play Blitzball correctly. I'm going to sacrifice it to draw 2 cards, and it's double Limit Breaks. I can Final Days at this point. And this is me also realizing, oh, I missed the win Now, I also am putting together a plan of using the 2 Limit Breaks and the Final Days to win the game next turn. But Venat has to survive, along with Black Mage's Rod. But that's why we kept the Vincent's Limit Break. Now Venat is going to die. They're going to destroy it. It's going to come back. But I've already pinged them for 1 point of damage because of Black Mage's Rod. They swing in for 2. They make a treasure. And now I'm like, do I have enough? I now officially have enough to equip the Rod to Venat, cast a Crystal Fragments, and then a Limit Break in case they try to get rid of Venat. At this point, game's over. And I'm sitting here going, how did this just happen? How did I out Black Mage the 0/1 Black Mage Black Wizard deck? I mean, how did I do that? I'm not even wizards. I'm legitimately a pile of 16 lands and 24 cards that make no sense. And as of this moment in this tournament, I've had 2 losses. So I think I'm 5-2 at this point. Yeah, I just won my 5th game and I've gone positive. I'm free rolling this. I'm free rolling this draft at this point, and I only recorded the last 2 games because I thought it was that bad. And then I realized, oh, this is I'm on a heater actually. Let me start recording this. And that's on me. But as I said, the draft I felt went so bad that it wasn't worth it. I stopped recording after the first pack because I was like, all right, I've already ruined this draft. And next thing I know, I win 5 games. Now we play Undercity Dire Rat, hoping that it dies, that our opponent uses a precious piece of removal just so we can get a treasure token. And they do not oblige us. They do Tifa, which kind of scares the living daylights out of me a bit. So I'm like, let me see if I can get a cheeky attack in with Dire Rat. All right. It gets in, and now I think I played side quest Catch a Fish to try to get some ramp going because I want that Malboro out fast because Tifa's about to get ridiculous. Our opponent's in thought. There's the land. Tifa's now a 2/2. If another land comes into play, which these green decks want to do, it's now a 4/2. But instead I only get hit for 2, and now we reveal side quest. Fails me this time. We catch a plains. I Black Rod and then Monk Fist. Because that combination I do like, and I might want to do a cheap standard deck involving Black Rods and the 0/1 Wizards and the Monk Fist because it's a non-creature and it's cheap and I don't have to worry about color fixing on that. And this is my biggest fear. Tifa Lockhart's now a 2/2. We plains it again, so I'm like, I can't even Malboro at this point, and I don't want to attack because they left. I should have attacked there, but the 4/4 is scaring me. Now Tifa, Chocobo Racetrack, and I think I'm in the safe. I think I'm in the clear. I think I'm stabilizing now. And we get the limit break, which doesn't help us. But now we can Malboro. Come to think of it, looking at this, I should have Malboro'd. But I think I'm doing this cheeky Vincent's limit break. And I go, they are letting their Tifa Lockhart die. That scares the living daylights out of me. So what do I want to limit break, if anything? Because the token can't come back from the limit break. I'm getting a treasure, and now I'm going to Malboro post-combat. So they discard a card, lose 2 life, and they exile the top 3 cards of their library. And I'm hoping to get some land hits in that. And I kind of was like, cool, we got Ride the Shoe Puff, which will wreck us. But then they hit us with the Genova. And I am, at this point, praying for a white Aura Sight to come out. And it's another swamp. So we play the swamp and just put the Black Mage's Rod on the Malboro, and I should have swung. I should have swung with the Malboro on this one because the only good block they have is a Gigantoad, and that would have been a good block. They're not blocking with Genova, and Bartz and Boko basically tell us this game is now officially over because the Malboro is getting hit for 5 damage, and I'm like, do I save it? And this is why I regretted not attacking with the Malboro post-combat because it was going to die anyway. If they wanted to block, I could have gotten a creature off the board. But now, between Genova, Bartz, and Boko, our opponent has an amazing counters deck. So I'm like, all right, well, game's almost over. Let me try to limit break here just to get rid of the Gigantoad. Because at this point... And then I forgot about the last line of Genova's text. And oops, is right for me. And I think it's just about game over here. I'm sitting on 7 lands, no cards in hand. I just accidentally refilled our opponent's hand size back to 7 because I didn't read the second line of Genova. They hit a land. They're getting more 2/2s. Bartz and Boko is popping off. I'm catching fish with lands, and I'm just like, lands, am I right? Didn't want to hit the greatness, hit him with the good game, and I'm just going to let him pop off because, man, this deck was fun to go up against. They hit me with the Raise a Chocobo, now a 2/2. Then they hit me with the Summon Fat Chocobo. Our opponent, whoever was in this person's pod, let them get away with absolute bloody murder when it comes to tokens and birds. But that being said, That's how it ends. And for Max Heroes and Villains, I've been Dom Douglas and Mayor Top Deck. Always be mythic. And don't forget, I went 5-3 with this deck that I didn't think had any right winning 2 games, let alone 5.